In 1891, a shipment arrived at the Royal Palace of Bulgaria. Crated in oak, wrapped in linen, it contained a new acquisition from Munich, a painting by a rising German artist named Franz von Stuck. When the ministers of Prince Ferdinand first laid eyes on it, silence fell over the room. One man crossed himself, another whispered a prayer. The prince smiled. He had wanted precisely that reaction. They said from that day forward, every time someone passed before the canvas, they repeated the sign of the cross, not because of what the painting showed, but because of what it stirred. Franz von Stuck was no ordinary painter. Born in Bavaria in 1863, he grew up sketching saints and sinners in equal devotion. When he moved to Munich at 15, the city was already humming with strange new ideas, spiritualism, psychology, and art that no longer sought to imitate life, but to expose the invisible forces within it. At the academy, Stuck learned precision. In the streets, he learned temptation. He became fascinated by the line between holiness and desire. By the 1880s, his canvases glowed with mythic beings, angels, forms, serpents, always poised between grace and fall. When the Guardian of Paradise won him the gold medal of Munich's Glass Palace exhibition, critics hailed him as a visionary. But beneath the acclaim, Stuck was already chasing darker subjects. He built Villa Stuck, his own temple of art, a house where every room was designed as ritual, every wall inscribed with gods and demons. Visitors later said it felt less like a home than a shrine to beauty and guilt. It was in that fevered atmosphere, half cathedral, half dream, that he conceived Lucifer. A man sits in darkness. His body, bare and sculptural, folds in on itself, legs pressed tight, angled arms, head tilted, eyes glowing with a faint fire. No movement, no gesture, only thought. The composition is almost architectural. Two barely visible wings rise behind him like black pillars. They do not spread outward. They trap him. A cage made of his own divinity. The portrayal is monumental but confined. The angel who rebelled against heaven, now imprisoned by the very will that made him fall. A closer look at those hands tells the story. One supports the head, as if weighed down by memory. The other twists backward unnaturally, touching, perhaps, the edge of a folded wing. The gesture is ambiguous. Comfort or restraint? The ambiguity is the point. Beside him glows a faint source of shimmering light, a strange lunar light, neither day nor night. Scholars still debate its meaning. A moon, perhaps, reflecting stolen light, fitting for the light-bringer, condemned to shine no longer. Or maybe a wound in the dark, the trace of heaven he can never return to. In the etching, the wings emerge clearly. The eyes burn brighter. The bench beneath him feels more like a throne. He does not fall. He waits. This seemed to depict the true horror of rebellion. Not punishment, but endurance. To understand why Lucifer unsettled those ministers, and still unsettles us, we have to look beyond religion into psychology. The 1890s were the dawn of introspection. Europe was turning inward. Freud was formulating dreams, Nietzsche proclaiming the death of God. Artists like Franz von Stuck turned theology into metaphor for the human mind. Lucifer here is not a monster. He is self-awareness incarnate. He knows too much. He has seen perfection, and now perceives its absence everywhere. The folded arms become self-containment, pride as armor. The eyes, a mirror. We do not watch him, he watches us. And that is the painting's trick. Stand before it long enough, and you realize the fear the ministers felt was not of the devil. It was of recognition. Every age paints its own devil. For this generation, standing at the edge of science and faith, the devil was the thinking man who could no longer believe. The intellect, cut off from grace. The modern soul, brilliant and alone. Prince Ferdinand was delighted by the scandal. He told Franz von Stuck that his ministers had been terrified by the sight of the angel, and that the story spread through the court. Over the decades, the legend grew, that women fainted, that the painting was hidden, that it cursed its room with silence. The truth is simpler and stranger. The painting remained in the royal collection for years, passed down, moved, finally resting in Sophia's National Gallery. Through wars and regime changes, it survived intact, like its subject, exiled but enduring. When exhibitions revived interest in Stuck during the 20th century, Lucifer became the centerpiece. Crowds stood before it in the dim light, whispering the same words again and again. He's alive. Today, the eyes of Lucifer still follow every visitor. They gleam not with hatred, but with knowledge, the knowledge of what it costs to be aware. Perhaps that is why the ministers crossed themselves, not from superstition, but from instinct, because in that darkness, they saw themselves, and the thin line between obedience and will, faith and pride, light and the hunger to possess it. When you look into those eyes, what part of you stares back? But perhaps that question was never meant to be answered, because Lucifer is not a portrait, it is a mirror painted in oil, a mirror for anyone who has ever wondered what they would do with perfect knowledge and no forgiveness. Look closely again. The shadows behind him are not empty. They seem to breathe. There are faint shapes in the dark, a suggestion of feathers or smoke, or souls that never found their way back. No one can quite agree. Even high-resolution scans reveal things that weren't there before, as if the paint itself keeps moving when no one is watching. Some say the artist repainted the eyes over and over, chasing a color he could never match again. Others believe he was simply afraid to finish them, that to give Lucifer a complete gaze would invite him to step out of the canvas. When the painting hung in Franz von Stuck's villa, visitors recalled a silence that fell over the room. He refused to speak while anyone stood before it. He would only whisper, "He knows what you're thinking." And maybe he did, because the eyes in that portrait do not look toward heaven nor hell. They fix on the thin space between, where human beings live and doubt and dream. Every generation has looked into those eyes and seen something different. A devil, a fallen god, a symbol of art's defiance or of man's endless pride. But perhaps Lucifer endures because he is all of them and none. He is the echo that answers when you stare too long into yourself, the thought that keeps you awake long after the video ends. So when you next stand in a museum and feel a pair of eyes following you, don't look away too quickly. You might not be looking at the painting. It might be looking through you. And somewhere in that quiet distance, Franz von Stuck's angel still sits in the dark, waiting for the light he once betrayed, and for us to understand why he cannot let it go.